So when I was living in Hanover, I didn't know how long I would stay there. The company found lodging for me because we didn't know how long I'd be there. They didn't find anything real permanent. But in Hanover, many families who had big apartment houses would rent out a bedroom to somebody, a working person or something. And they found a nice German family and contracted for me to stay there during my stay in Hanover. It was really interesting. They had a very modern apartment house. There was a mother, a father, a son, and a daughter. And they were they greeted me warmly, but there was, I never really felt like I could get close to them. They all spoke English at some level, and the two young people spoke fairly good English. The father had been a Luftwaffe pilot in World War II, and I attempted to ask questions about his experience. He didn't want to talk about it. In fact, none of the family members wanted to talk about anything, really. But they were very kind to me. I didn't take meals with them. In fact, I found a restaurant that was near there. It was a working man's restaurant. It was really a neat place. And I'd go there after work for dinner. It had one huge room with this gigantic round table. It was big. It could have been 15 feet in diameter, I don't know. But it had a lot of chairs around it. And only men came there, and they were all working men. They were working in factories, or they were laborers or something of that sort. It was really a neat place. It had a huge Lazy Susan, and the evening meal started at about 5 o'clock, and the lady that ran the place would take drink orders. And the drink that was the most popular was corn, beer und Korn, which meant you got a glass of beer and you poured a shot of whiskey in it. And so most of the guys would have a couple of those, and there's a lot of conversation. Well, they were fairly young to middle-aged men, hard-working guys, and they were very joyful. It was really kind of fun. I didn't speak German, and none of them spoke English. But I could listen to the things that they were saying, and some words are very obvious, like the word politics, or Politik. You could recognize that, and other words that. So I could get a gist of what they were talking about, or some sports terms about soccer, football, and things of that sort. So I just listened real carefully and tried to follow what I thought they were saying. What was so much fun was that these guys, they knew each other. I don't know if they were friends, but they all knew each other because I saw them there every time I went in. The same group was there. And they would get in conversations, and it would be a three-ring circus. They would talk about football, or they would talk about politics, or they would talk about food. But there's all this fist pounding on the table and people really serious about the things they're saying. Then they'd burst out in laughter. Somebody would say something funny. What I enjoyed about that was the camaraderie that these guys shared. I don't think they were real close friends. I didn't get that feeling at all. But they all were probably single guys like myself, living in an apartment and needed a place to eat. But there was freedom. It was unbelievable freedom. And there was the freedom to express your feelings. So if somebody was talking about a political issue, they would bang their fist on the table and they'd have an angry face, or they're talking about their winning team and they'd be all joyful. It was so different than what I experienced in America. There was freedom to be yourself. Now, there were boundaries in the behaviors, obviously. But I thoroughly enjoyed those meals with those men. After it was all said and done, I had not learned to speak German language when I was in Germany. I wish I really had. It would have been fun to be in those conversations. But they might have asked about JFK, and I would have been ignorant, of course. But those were good evenings, And the one thing that I noticed that couples with this, the manager of the district office that I was working out of took me to dinner one night. He was asking questions about how our operation ran in America and what kind of things might be of help to them. And he took me to a really nice restaurant. We had a delightful dinner of pork loin with bananas. The bananas, the pork loin was on a plate, and then they had bananas on each side. They'd been baked with the pork loin. It was unbelievably good. But in the course of the conversation, and this was at a nice restaurant, but it was associated with a beer garden, we went out into the beer garden afterward, and we're sitting there. I don't know how many people were out there. It was a beautiful, warm fall evening. But somebody stood up, and I may be incorrect on this. I'm pretty certain, but I may be wrong on this, that the guy who stood up in the midst of all these people, they're all strangers, they're all drinking beer, they're laughing, they're having fun. It's a really neat evening. I think he started singing Edelweiss, and everybody stood up with beer in hand, and they all began to sing. And there was just a freedom of expression in song, unlike anything I'd ever seen in America, where it didn't seem like many people were singing at all. I mean, at least I hadn't experienced a group where spontaneous singing started. I'd never seen that. I'd never experienced those guys sitting at a round table in a neighborhood restaurant that could have really open and free discussions. And by the way, when they left after dinner, they all hugged each other, patted each other on the back, and probably said, "See you tomorrow." So there was free expression, the ability to share what's on your mind. It's done within boundaries, but they were friends at some level, and they appreciated and respected each other. How different it is in America. Where's the free spirit to sing? Where is the ability to be in a restaurant with a whole bunch of strangers and talk about politics and be able to share your thoughts on it, your ideas, your position, and then at the end of the conversation to shake hands and hug each other and say, "See you tomorrow." I love that experience. I'd give anything to have that experience again. It's worth pursuing.